So sure, there's no one right way to write an argument paper. It can be 3 paragraphs, 9, even 17. It can be loaded with research. It can be full of voice and personal anecdotes. It can be intensely academic with a formal, objective perspective and 32 sources cited with MLA. We want our students to understand the rich palette of tools available to them, and we want them to see mentor texts, have varied writing assignments, be encouraged to try new things. All of this is so important. But so is a place to start. Maybe you've heard me talk about the 5-paragraph essay before and how I don't think it's dead, I just think it's a scaffold. It goes along with a theme that we need skill foundations sometimes. For me, when it comes to argument writing, a clear and simple formula for introductions can be one of the most helpful things for students who are really struggling to write and organize a coherent argument. I've taken so many students through this sort of basic 4 pillars of the introduction that sets up the clear pillars of the paper so that by the time they're done writing the introduction, they're pretty much set for the entire paper. It's the base I used for my English papers through my BA and MA in English literature, and it's the one I made sure all my students knew how to use when they needed it. It's the foundation. It's not the end, but today I want to talk you through it. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more creativity, more engagement, more joy, and no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. So as you may know, if you've been listening this month, we're focused on argument right now because it's our monthly theme over in the Lighthouse. If you're new to the Lighthouse, it's the teacher community where I share all the curriculum I design and we talk about how to use it and all the good things happening in our community members' classrooms. It's been my joy to work with thousands of teachers in the Lighthouse over the last 5 years and be part of the amazing supportive community that has sprung up inside. The Lighthouse will be opening again soon, so if you find yourself feeling curious about what it's like, just be sure you're signed up for my emails, as that's the best way to be positive you don't miss it. You can always sign up over at my website, nowsparkcreativity.com. Okay, so back to the introductions. When it comes to an introduction, I like to teach students that they're like a puzzle with 4 core pieces. Inside a basic introduction, students are going to want to include a hook, a mention of the work and author that they'll be discussing, their thesis statement, and then what I've always heard called the organizing sentence, where they lay out their big ideas. Now that makes it sound so super quick and easy, but of course, figuring out these 4 puzzle pieces takes time. You want to start, or at least I like to start, with models that can explain the 4 parts. So you show them some introductions. You show them how the hook captures the reader's attention. You show them how the author of the paper always mentions the work that they're going to be discussing and the person who wrote that work. You show them how the thesis sets up the argument, and you show them how that last line, the organizing sentence, hits on all the main points that will be used to prove the thesis. So you look at some models, you talk about these 4 puzzle pieces. Then it's time to address each part in turn. Different parts are different levels of difficulty. I like to just start with the hook. It's really approachable. It's a good place to start. You can give students examples of different ways to capture somebody's attention while staying on topic. I think the biggest trap students tend to fall into is starting with a famous quotation or starting with a rhetorical question every single time. So at this point, you can sort of warn them about finding one go-to hook that they abuse by using over and over and over again. Show them different types of hooks. Have them practice writing hooks for different arguments related to some text that you've recently read. Have them practice alone, in groups, in partners, as a whole class, all the different types of practice. Now, the next one is also pretty straightforward, mentioning the author or authors and title or titles. This is really just something to check off, but that can be a good feeling, right? When you're tackling an argument paper and you're kind of nervous. This is one thing everyone can get right. What you need to rehearse with them is just when do they need to italicize the title? When do they need to underline it? What goes in quotation marks? So that's just kind of share the rules, let them know they always need to mention the author and title. Next comes the big one, the thesis. By the time they get to you, unless you're teaching, the youngest grades, they're probably pretty familiar with the concept of writing a thesis, but you can always review the basics or just do a bunch of practice, right? Because probably you'll have some students who are masters of the thesis and some who are struggling no matter what age you teach. Maybe you want to try what we talked about last week on the pod, a little game of is it a thesis? Now, the last part of the introduction is the single sentence that's kind of going to define the rest of the paper. I've always called it the organizing sentence. You can call it whatever you want. This is like the roadmap, the blueprint. They're going to touch on all the big points that are going to prove their argument. So this sentence, wild card, can't be written without an outline of their whole paper, right? In order to mention the 3 arguments they're going to use to prove their thesis, they need to know what 3 arguments they're going to use to prove their thesis, which probably means they're going to have found text, that they're going to analyze to prove those 3 arguments, which are going to prove their thesis. And so in that way, this last element of the introduction takes a lot of prep. But on the upside, if they can write that last element of their introduction along with all the others, they've basically done all the work that they're going to need to do to write the paper. So what I've always told my students is, once you've written a good introduction, you're basically done. You're just following your own blueprint now from then on. You're gonna go through the paper, write your topic sentences, quote the text that you've already found, analyze the text to prove the points that you've already laid out in the introduction. So students may find that a little bit annoying that to write the organizing sentence, they basically have to be prepared to write the whole paper, but it is also kind of cool, right? The introduction is truly a blueprint. If they can get these 4 puzzle pieces, they're well on their way, and all the intimidation and writer's block should hopefully go out of the rest of the process. So all that's left is really to keep modeling, practicing, and repeating. Once you've worked on each part of the introduction, keep on reviewing them and reminding students to use them every time you write. Consider having a checklist on your writing prompt that shows the 4 parts, gives them a chance to check them off. Have peer reviewers search out those 4 parts and give feedback. Did they have a hook? Was it not super boring? Did they mention the author and title? Did they italicize or underline or quote mark their title correctly? Did they have an arguable thesis? Did they lay out their main points with the organizing sentence? Once these become sort of the everyday lexicon of formal writing, then students will be able to help each other with these, and that is really helpful. You'll also probably want to include them on your rubric, right? Because if you're going to all this trouble to really help them figure out that these are the essential building blocks of argument, then you want to reward them when they get them. You may want to give an outsized reward on the rubric, right? Really make the introduction worth a lot at first when that's what you're working on, or even consider just assigning introductions for a while. Because really a good introduction checks off so many of the boxes to help students figure out how to lay the foundation for a good argument paper. Alrighty, thanks so much for joining me today to talk about the 4 puzzle pieces that make up the foundation for a good argument. Once again, I'm not suggesting that this is the end-all, be-all of argument and that students can never come up with other structures or that they shouldn't see mentor texts that take them in new directions. But for me, just like the concept of a 5-paragraph essay, this is a scaffold that can help a lot of kids just understand the nuts and bolts of argument, and then they can build on that afterwards. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative.